Deep below the earth, the physical world narrows to cold stone and crushing iron. The subterranean pits of Tol and Gaurhoth starve the senses, offering nothing but the unrelenting gloom of the rock and the touch of chains. Bound in these depths is an elven king in disguise, shielding a mortal outlaw from the Dark Lieutenant, Sauron. Their purpose remains hidden, protected by a layer of sorcerous concealment that the enemy now seeks to peel away. Primordial beings in Arda wage war through the subcreative force of song. They assert dominance by chanting the secret fire into existence, weaving and bending reality to their specific will through a manifestation of their inner power. The king answers Sauron's oppressive chant with a song of staying. He projects a silver resistance into the air, building a fortress of trust and escape, manifesting as a physical luminescence against the wet stone. This duel relies on the purity of memory. To defend his mind, the king projects the uncorrupted history of the West, using the imagery of coastal pearls and pristine sands to repel the sorcery invading his thoughts. The strength of this defense is rooted in the king's own past. Finrod Felagund delved the cavernous citadel of Nargothrond alongside the dwarves of the Blue Mountains, carving a bastion of light and high culture beneath the hills of the High Faroth. This record illustrates his sovereignty. As overlord of the lands stretching from the river Sirion to the Western Sea, his influence defined the geopolitical landscape. His focus shifted eastward. Journeying to the Blue Mountains, he encountered the Atani, the second-born men. Finrod translated the deep histories of the stars and the shaping of the world for these wanderers. To the early human tribes, his presence was a bridge between their brief existence and the immortality of the high powers who ordered the universe. This affinity forged a bond that ignored the traditional boundaries of their kindreds. By linking the majesty of an elven ruler to the vulnerable destiny of humanity, Finrod created a strategic vulnerability that the Shadow would eventually exploit. The long peace ended in a deluge of fire. Morgoth unleashed rivers of flame from the Iron Mountains, incinerating the northern plains and turning the green world into a waste of gasping dust. Surrounded in the treacherous fen of Serech, the king faced certain death. He was saved by the valor of a mortal chieftain, Barahir, who led his men into a wall of spears to extract the elven lord from the slaughter. Amidst the ruin, the king gave Barahir his ring as a sworn, unbreakable commitment of friendship. He pledged to provide aid to the chieftain and all his kin in every hour of need, regardless of the cost to his own kingdom. That pledge led him to this dungeon, aiding Barahir's son. Now, as the song duel reaches its climax, Sauron finds the fracture in the king's defense, launching a counterchant of treachery and blood. Sauron actively weaponizes the elves' own history. He sings of the ancient kinslaying at the Havens, using the memory of stolen ships and the blood of fellow elves to drown the king's imagery of pristine sands in a tide of guilt. The defensive song founders and collapses. The silvery light is snuffed out, stripping away the captives' magical disguises and leaving them exposed and defenseless before the enemy. Sauron's absolute victory ends the metaphysical duel. In the silence that follows, only a raw struggle for survival remains in the darkness of the pit. A pair of luminous eyes pierces the blackness. Sauron dispatches a werewolf into the cell, its low, guttural breathing marking the end of the psychological confrontation and the beginning of the execution. The beast ignores the king, lunging instead for the mortal outlaw. With his magic broken and no weapons to draw, the king is left with only his physical strength to fulfill the promise sworn years before in the fire. Drawing upon the intrinsic might of his immortal frame, he strains against his bindings. The iron groans and is shattered as the king throws himself between the wolf and the man. The fight abandons the grace of elven art. The architect and musician wrestles in the muck, killing the dark creature with his bare hands and teeth until the beast lies dead on the stone. Mortally wounded, the king falls on the floor of the very watchtower he had built centuries earlier to guard against the shadow. his own creation has become the site of his final stand. While his body remains in Middle-earth, the king's spirit passes across the Great Sea. In the Undying Lands, he is permitted to walk unburdened beneath the trees of Eldamar alongside his father. The preservation of light in Arda rested on this single act, a sovereign choosing to forfeit his kingdom and his life to keep a promise.